Did you realize that Mark Hamill, the same guy who played Luke Skywalker, starred in a movie where he scours a junkyard for a cool car before rebuilding a super custom Corvette in his high school auto shop class? I never knew this movie existed, and if I did, I would probably also own a Corvette by now. After the students trick out this Corvette, they cruise it down the strip, drag racing and doing burnouts under their teacher's direct supervision. Then the Corvette is stolen, so the young Skywalker who worked so hard on the car hitchhikes to Vegas where the car is supposedly located. He meets up with a wannabe prostitute who drives a hopped-up van named Vanessa as he tracks down his car. The movie has an epic car chase, go figure, so be sure to check out this classic flick. On this episode of Modern Greaser, we're looking at this 1976 Corvette Stingray. So we are privileged to have our very first Corvette on Modern Greaser, and the thing I love about it is that this car is from the 70s. This 1976 Corvette came equipped with Firethorn red interior, and it's actual real leather interior, not that cheap plastic garbage that you get on a lot of cars today. Are they putting plastic garbage in cars? I don't really know, but either way, this is genuine leather made from a cow. We are looking at a genuine 1976 C3 Corvette Stingray, and it is an unmolested, great example of an American classic. Now, this American classic had a little bit of a conspiracy where people are saying it's kind of a phallic-y design, but here on Modern Greaser, we don't care about phallic-y designs, and in fact, we embrace the phallic design, because you know what I think is more phallic-y? Kias and Hyundais. This thing is the opposite of phallic-y. This is an American classic, an American tradition, and I love it. I love it so much, I'm gonna lick the fender. You mind if I lick the fender, Matt? Oh yeah, that's tasty. It tastes like road. Okay, so Raymond Loewy designed the Corvette Stingray from 1968 till 1981. 82 is a little bit of a different year. And this is such a cool classic design. It had such a huge gap and such a huge span of time that this car spanned. Now, you used to be able to find these all over the place. You used to be able to for a pretty reasonable price, but they're starting to disappear off the market. So one of the reasons that these were less popular is because of emissions issues that came out in the 70s after 74, the end of the muscle car era, and issues with the oil embargo, and cars needed to be more fuel efficient, and catalytic converters, and all these things that came about with emissions. A lot of these cars got dogged on because they were kind of dogs, and it wasn't their fault. So this car came with the 350, but only had 210 horsepower, and the year prior, the 75 model had 185 horsepower. So they really didn't have that Corvette oomph to it, but it was because government restrictions. Now, you can buy one of these real cheap and put a 383 stroker motor in here. Why not? So everybody kind of has their own idea of what's collectible and what's cool. Like, oh, 74 had the metal bumpers and this year doesn't. But, oh, Ondura, I think it was the Ondura bumper that they had on the GTO. So in 1968, the GTO Judge had the Ondura front bumper set up on it, and it was a really cool design on it. And other people might say, well, I like the 65 and through 67 that had the metal bumper. So it's all about your opinion and your style and your taste. And as years go on, things that weren't collectible become collectible. And I think with this Corvette, it's starting to reach that pinnacle of collectability because a lot of those people that had these cars in the 70s and the 80s are wanting those cars again. And there's only a finite number of them. Some of them are gone and not on the roads anymore. So they're gonna be a huge collector items. Right now, these cars are creeping up in the 10,000 and plus range. It's gonna be really hard to find these for what used to be able to find them 10, 15 years ago. Especially an unmolested numbers matching version like this. And this car has a really cool color combination. All right, so what I love about this car, my friend Matt, this is his car. You probably saw him on the other episode. He had the 64 Ford F100. This is his other car, his Corvette. And he is a white car guy. The truck is one of the only non-white cars that he owns. He always has white cars. And he said he likes a good white car with a red interior. And this red interior is called Firethorn Red. What do you not like about a name like Firethorn? Firethorn Red, all right? It makes you want to do a little kick.
So Raymond Loewy, a famous designer who designed many really cool looking things in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, designed this model C3. And one of the things I absolutely love about it is the curves. If you just follow the lines of this car, it looks like a very shapely woman. However, it's been purported to have a phallic design. I don't know. You guys be the judge if you're driving around in a big giant penis or not. But I just know it is the coolest American sports car and always will be. So although this was the catalytic converter years where horsepower had to be tamed down and all that, this car has plenty of pep for me. I mean, some guys will take a Corvette and just ruin it by trying to do ridiculous things to it. You know, changing them around, really screwing them up. That's why I'm the type of guy who loves something kept as original as possible. And even though these had the years of the emissions, to me, this is all the power I need. It'll step right out.
This C3 is the third generation of the Corvette. It marks the second time that the Corvette would carry the Stingray name, though only from 1969 until 1976. Oddly enough, for this year's span of time, the word Stingray was one word, opposed to the two-letter name Stingray, which was used from 1963 to 1967 on the C2 generation. The name then stayed dormant until 2014 when the name Stingray would reappear on the C7 Corvette. 1975 was the end of the muscle car era, and in 1975, Corvettes were being introduced as the efficient Corvette. The 1976 year came with the catalytic converter, electronic ignition, and dual exhaust was now piped from one pipe and split into two pipes out the back. Power was almost at its lowest point in 1975, as the year bottomed out at 165 ponies. The 4-spoke Vega steering wheel was introduced in 1976, which was widely criticized for being used in other low-end GM vehicles. Mid to late 70s, early 80s Corvettes all received a lot of unwarranted negative attention by no fault of their own. Any car post 1974 received a lot of unfair treatment. With the death of the GTO, the Mustang, the Chevelle, it was the end of a muscle car era, and people didn't really want these fuel-efficient vehicles that didn't get up and go. Only with the passage of time has this era of car been reignited. The 1976 Corvette lost the cowl induction. However, it remained the same aesthetic looking hood, it lost its functionality. The cowl induction system was seen on many year Corvettes, Camaros, Chevelles of years prior. Now, just because it's not functional doesn't mean it doesn't look cool, but maybe you should comment below and tell me, does it really matter if it's functional or not? For the 1976 year model of the Corvette, the horsepower, I should say pony power, was increased from 165 horsepower up to 180. Now for the L82, it went from a whopping 205 to 210. But hey, don't blame Corvette, don't blame GM, these were the restrictions of the time. Car and Driver took the 1976 Corvette on a 4,000-mile road trip to Alaska. On this trip, the magazine quickly reported back that they loved the car and that they developed a new respect for it. That's where the same conclusion has brought us to our modern day. The car received a lot of unwarranted negative attention by no fault of its own. Having spanned 14 years from 1968 to 1982, this style Corvette was a commonly seen vehicle on the road. I remember them being everywhere, and I never really gave them a second glance. As we filmed this 1976 Corvette and drove around, I was stupefied at the amount of attention this car recruited. People were giving it thumbs up. Some girl on her bike was like, "Hey, nice Corvette!" I was like, wow, this is crazy. A lot of people miss seeing these cars on the road, and tell you what, a lot of these people that are in their 20s never saw these cars as a common feature on the road like a lot of us did. Driving this car was awesome. I had no idea it was going to bring so much attention. It makes me want one. While we were filming this, another young lady said, "Wow, look at that Corvette. I want to drive that Corvette." I couldn't get over how much attention this Corvette was bringing. With the short amount of time and distance traveled and spent filming this episode, I couldn't get over all the attention that this car recruited. With the passage of time, this black sheep year of the Corvette will become an icon. In fact, I think it's currently an icon. Just because this car didn't come factory with 396 horses under the hood doesn't mean it's not badass.
So another way that this tells you that this is the great American sports car is that the hood lifts the way a sports car should, and that is towards the front of the car. And this particular engine is all original. The only thing that is that is not a part of it is the original catalytic converter apparatus. But it's all numbers matching and unmolested, this engine. This particular Corvette is, as Kyle stated, the Firethorn red leather interior and the style of the interior. So when I was looking at Corvettes 6, 7, 8 years ago, I had a choice between this and the 80, 81, 80, 81 body style, which was basically the same body style, but it had a rear window that was kind of like a hatchback instead of the straight up and down. And that I kind of liked, but the selling feature that I really liked these years is the bezel of the speedometer and the tack. In the 1980-81 models, it had a very flat faced dashboard that kind of looked like other cars of that era, and I just wasn't in love with it. The tunnel where the gear shift was too was like a light cardboard type material, I thought, and it was kind of coming apart a little bit in the model that I was driving. The dashboard was just flat and didn't have a lot of character. And when I went to look at this one, I just love a white car and I love a red interior. And the way the bezels looked of the tachometer and the speedometer, I fell in love with it. I was like, this is the one. Yikes, this is one of 46,558 Corvettes made in the 1976 model year.
Long ago are the days where the naysayers from the 70s who didn't appreciate this car when it first came out. Now we're going to welcome the new generation of all those who see this car for what it really is. It's a great American sports car, the Corvette. Times aren't going to change the stylish lines, even though some people thought it might be phallic-y. I don't know if I agree with that. Put your comments below if you ever thought that about this car. I never thought that, but apparently it was rumor. I guess that's just what happens. People always find the negative in things. Same thing with the Edsel, right? Didn't they say the Edsel was supposed to represent, like, female? We won't go down that road. But anyways, that car wasn't a success either. But the Corvette has always been a success. And the same thing with the Porsche 996. Everyone's like, oh, the fried eggs on the headlights, blah, blah, blah. That car is going to be a whopping success. And Doug DeMuro has predicted that. And you know what? As time goes on, these cars that kind of got a bad rap at first are slowly changing with the wheel of time. As time goes on, I never thought that I would ever want a C3 Corvette from the 68 to 82 year range. After having spent the day in the 76 Corvette, I grew a new appreciation for that C3 body style that lasted from 68 to 82. You don't see them anymore. They're easily recognizable, and I think they're going to be one of the next timeless classic cars. The prices of these have gone sky high from what they used to be, and you can still get one for a relatively cheap price. And they're very easily modifiable, so if you want to get one and soup it up, by all means. But don't tell my buddy Matt, because he likes them classic. And just like the rest of you guys, stay classic.